The first time James' hand slid up my thigh, I told myself it was an accident. By the third time, I knew it wasn't. By the fifth, I didn't care. This isn't a love story. It's a confession. Before I unravel this tangled web, thank you so much to my subscribers. You're the reason I keep sharing these raw, unfiltered truths. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Your support fuels this channel, and I can't wait to read your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's begin. I am Cynthia Hart, 66, a widow clinging to the ghost of my husband in a too-empty Ohio farmhouse. James, 23, is my step-grandson, sharp jawline, restless hands, and a smile that could thaw Lake Erie in January. He arrived last summer to help me settle in after my husband's death. His mother, my stepdaughter Clara, had always been distant. I should have wondered why. Loneliness is a slow poison. Months of silence gnawed at me until I asked James for a shoulder rub. Innocent, I swear. But his fingers dug into my knots like he was unraveling his own secrets. The air thickened. My robe slipped. He didn't look away. What followed wasn't love. It was hunger. Stolen glances over morning coffee turned into breathless afternoons in my sunlit bedroom. We never spoke of Clara, or the law, or the 43 years between us. The world shrunk to the scent of his cologne and the way he whispered, "You're nothing like her." One night, I found a crumpled letter in his jeans, addressed to Clara. Words like abuse and payback leaped out. When I confronted him, he laughed. "You think this is about you?" The letter burned hotter in my mind than James' hands ever had. Abuse. Payback. Words that should have sent me running. Instead, I stayed. Loneliness, I learned, makes you reckless. James didn't deny the letter. When I shoved it at him that night, his smirk didn't falter. "You think I am here for you?" he said, voice low, like gravel under tires. He leaned in, the scent of beer and hay clinging to him. "Clara owes me. Always has." He didn't explain. Just kissed me. Hard. Like he was erasing the question. I let him. Our days settled into a dangerous rhythm. Mornings, he would fix the barn roof while I pretended not to watch the flex of his shoulders. Afternoons, we would collide in my bedroom, sheets tangled, sunlight slicing through curtains like judgment. Evenings, we would eat silent dinners, the clink of forks louder than words. Guilt festered in the gaps. I started seeing my husband's face in the mirror, disappointed, distant. I stopped looking in mirrors. The town noticed. Betty from the church committee called to ask why I had skipped potluck. "You're withering away, Cynthia," she clucked. I lied about arthritis. Meanwhile, James flirted with cashiers at the grocery store, buying time until our next feverish hour together. I hated the way their laughter followed him. Hated myself more for caring. Then came the storm. July heat cracked open the sky one evening, rain slamming the farmhouse like fists. James found me in the parlor, clutching a photo of my husband. Without a word, he pinned me against the wall, hands rough, mouth urgent. Thunder drowned my gasp. Later, he traced the scar on my hip, a relic from a fall decades ago, and muttered, "Clara never asked about my scars." His eyes darkened. "She's why I hate hospitals." I didn't pry. Fear kept me quiet. Fear and the addictive thrill of being wanted, needed, after years of being nobody's priority. The barn became our sanctuary. We would meet there after midnight. Hay prickling my back, his truck parked strategically to block the road's view. One night, headlights sliced through the dark. Clara's sedan. Panic clawed my throat as James shoved me behind a tractor. "Stay down," he hissed, striding out to greet her. "Mom's losing it," Clara snapped, voice carrying over the rain. She says you're never home. James laughed easy. Grandma's just lonely. Unlike you. A pause. You're using her, aren't you? Careful, Mom. You sound jealous. I crouched in the dirt, heart hammering. Using her. The words coiled in my gut. Later, when James returned, I didn't ask. He didn't offer. We didn't speak at all. By August, paranoia was my shadow. I jumped at creaking floorboards, deleted texts obsessively, and scrubbed the house of his scent. But when James pressed me against the fridge, murmuring, "You're mine," I melted. Pathetic? Maybe. But for the first time since my husband's death, I felt alive, needed, even if it was a lie. Then the pills. I found them in his duffel. Orange bottle, Clara's name, dated 2 years back. Antidepressants. When I confronted him, his mask slipped. She didn't believe me. He spat, eyes wild. Not when I told her about the stepdad. Not when I showed her the bruises. But she will believe this. He gripped my wrists. You will help me make her believe. I should have screamed. Fled. Called the cops. Instead, I kissed him. The fire spread. Clara called more often, her tone sharpening. James isn't answering his phone, she would say. Put him on. I would lie, he's in town, while his hands roamed under the table. My stepdaughter's voice dripped through the receiver like acid. You've changed. I had. The reckoning came on a Tuesday. James arrived with a black eye, knuckles split. Bar fight, he shrugged. But his truck reeked of Clara's perfume. When I reached for him, he recoiled. Not tonight. That night, I dreamed of my husband's funeral. Rain-soaked graves, Clara's glare, James standing too close. You're next, he whispered, shovel in hand. I woke to an empty bed. Downstairs, the landline rang. Clara's number. I didn't answer. The funeral was supposed to be for closure. Instead, it became the stage where my lies unraveled like a poorly stitched seam. They gathered on a brittle autumn morning. Family, neighbors, strangers clutching casseroles like shields. The church hall smelled of lilies and coffee, a cruel mimicry of the last time we had all stood here for my husband's burial. Clara arrived in a black trench coat, her eyes sharp as broken glass. James lingered near the punch bowl, avoiding my gaze. For weeks, he had been distant, his texts sparse, his touch colder. I told myself it was guilt. I was wrong. The eulogy was my undoing. As I stood at the podium, photos of my husband flickering on the screen behind me, my voice cracked. He believed in second chances, I said, fingers trembling. Out of the corner of my eye, James smirked. Clara's phone buzzed, a sound that pierced the silence like a knife. Afterward, she cornered me in the church kitchen, her perfume clashing with the scent of burnt coffee. You look tired, Cynthia, she said, voice syrupy with venom. Late nights with family, perhaps? My throat closed. Behind her, James leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a spectator to my unraveling. The evidence came at dusk. Clara slid an envelope across my kitchen table, her nails chipped, knuckles white. Inside, grainy security stills from the barn, time-stamped August. My robe pooled at my feet, James' hand gripping my hip. Mom's security cameras, Clara said. She loaned them after the theft last year. Her laugh was brittle. Guess they caught something else. I didn't beg, didn't cry. Shame had calcified in me by then. What do you want? I rasped. A confession, she said. Or I take these to the cops. Statutory laws here are very clear, even if he initiated. James chose that moment to stroll in, crunching an apple. Dramatic, he drawled, tossing the core into the sink. But pointless. Clara whirled. You think this is a game? No, he said, ice in his tone. It's justice. You ignored the bruises he gave me. Now everyone will ignore you." The room tilted.
He had planned this.
My hands fisted in my dress, his favorite, bought to make him smile. They argued like feral dogs, clawing up decades of secrets. Clara's neglect. Jameis' childhood fractures. The stepdad who had disappeared after the CPS reports. I sat numb, a ghost in my own home. "You used her?" Clara spat, jabbing a finger at me. James shrugged. "She used me too. Loneliness makes people desperate." The word hung, rancid. Outside, neighbors' curtains twitched. By dawn, the town would know. Clara left with the envelope, but not before hissing, "Lawyers will be in touch." James followed, tossing a final glance over his shoulder, a smirk I once thought was charm. Now it was a brand. Alone, I poured whiskey into my coffee mug, the pills from Jameis' duffel clattering in my drawer. Antidepressants. Clara's name. A prop in his revenge. The phone rang. Betty from the church, no doubt. I let it bleed into voicemail. "Cynthia." My husband's voice whispered in the static. "What have you done?" I smashed the answering machine with the bottle. The lawyer's office smelled like dust and regret. Clara sat across from me, her leg bouncing under the mahogany desk, while James slouched in the corner, picking at a loose thread on his sleeve. 3 days had passed since the funeral fiasco, and now we were here, summoned to review a revised will none of us knew existed. My husband's attorney, Mr. Porter, slid a document toward us with gloved hands, as if the paper itself were contaminated. "Frank amended his will 6 months before his passing," he said, avoiding my eyes. "He left the farmhouse and its land to James. The rest, investments, savings, to Clara." The room swayed. Frank knew. He had known about James long before I did. Clara lunged for the will, her voice ablaze. "This is forged. He would never." "It's notarized," Mr. Porter interrupted, tapping a seal. "Frank said James deserved stability after certain hardships." James didn't react. No smirk, no triumph. Just a hollow stare, like he had been expecting this. Later, at the farmhouse, I found him in the barn, shredding hay with a pitchfork. "You knew," I said. He stabbed the tines into the dirt. "Frank visited me in college. Told me Clara drove him away when I was a kid. Said I was troubled. But he kept tabs." His jaw tightened. "He wanted to make it right. So you used me to get close to him?"
"No."
He turned, eyes glinting. "I used you to hurt her." The admission hung between us, raw and rank. I had been a weapon, a means to punish Clara for years of indifference. And Frank, he had tried to buy forgiveness from the grave. Clara arrived at dawn, her Mercedes spitting gravel. She stormed in, waving the will like a torch. "You think you've won?" She hissed at James. "I will contest this. You're a predator, a liar." James leaned against the stove, eerily calm. "And you're a hypocrite. Those pills in my duffel? You left them at my apartment after one of your episodes. Remember?" He tossed a photo on the table, Clara, disheveled, clutching a wine bottle in a hospital gown. "How fast will the court dismiss you once they see this?" Clara paled. For the first time, she looked small. You kept that?" "Insurance," he said. I stood frozen, a spectator to their war. My hands still smelled like him. That night, I found Frank's old journal buried in the attic. The pages spilled with guilt, Clara's rage, Jameis' bruises. I should have stopped it. The final entry, dated a week before a stroke. "Cynthia deserves the truth." But how? Rain lashed the windows as I flipped to a folded letter tucked inside and signed, addressed to James. "The farm is yours. Protect it from her." Frank scrawl. My husband had chosen sides long before his death. A floorboard creaked. James stood in the doorway, a duffel slung over his shoulder. Leaving? I asked, voice brittle. Clara's dropping the case, he said. The photo broke her. And the farm? Sell it.
Keep it.
I don't care. Was any of it real? The question slipped out, pathetic. He hesitated. For a heartbeat, the mask cracked, a flicker of something soft, shattered. Then he turned. Goodbye, Cynthia. The next morning, Clara's lawyer called. She's withdrawing the charges, he said, tone clipped. But the will stands. James gets the property. I hung up, numb. The farmhouse echoed with ghosts, Frank's laughter in the hallways, Jameis whispers in the sheets. I packed a suitcase, but couldn't leave.
Not yet.
In the barn, I found Frank's journal again, and a deed. The land wasn't just willed to James, it was mortgaged. Frank had borrowed against it months before he died. Payments were overdue. James hadn't known. The foreclosure notice arrived on a Thursday. Bold red letters screamed final warning, demanding $87,000 by month's end. Frank's journal trembled in my hands as I dialed Jameis' number, disconnected. Clara didn't answer either. The farmhouse, once a sanctuary, now felt like a coffin. I found Clara at Frank's grave, her trench coat flapping in the wind like a crow's wings. You knew about the mortgage, I said, voice raw. She didn't turn. Frank begged me not to tell you. Said he would fix it. A bitter laugh. Turns out fixing meant leaving us all in hell. Why didn't you fight James for the land? Because I am tired, she snapped, finally facing me. Tears streaked her mascara. James wins. You lose. That's how this ends. That night, lightning split the sky. I stood in the parlor, whiskey in hand, staring at the family portrait. Frank's smile frozen, Clara's glare, Jameis' empty space where he had scratched himself out. The storm raged, and so did I. A crash echoed from the barn. I ran, barefoot, through the downpour. Inside, James rummaged through old trunks, his face gaunt, clothes reeking of diesel. You came back, I breathed. For the deed, he muttered, shoving papers into a backpack. Clara's selling the land to developers. They will bulldoze it next week. You're just letting her? He paused, jaw tight. I don't want anything from her. Not anymore. What about me? The words slipped out, desperate. He froze. For a heartbeat, the boy beneath the bitterness surfaced. Scared, scarred. Then he zipped the bag. Goodbye, Cynthia. The fire started in the barn. Maybe it was the lightning. Maybe it was me. Flakes of ash kissed my cheeks as I watched the flames devour Frank's journals, Jameis' duffel, Clara's childhood toys. The mortgage notice curled into smoke. Sirens wailed. Neighbors gathered, clutching robes, faces lit by the inferno. Clara arrived, screaming, "You crazy bitch!" as firefighters hosed the ruins. James was already gone. The farmhouse survived. Barely. Clara sold the scorched land for pennies. I took my suitcase and $3,200 from Frank's hidden lockbox. No goodbyes. No looking back. At the bus station, I found a folded note in my coat pocket, Jameis' scrawl. The truth? For a minute, I wished it was real. I thrashed it. They say fire cleanses.
Lies. Guilt. Love.
All turn to ash. But ashes scatter. And sometimes they grow. To my viewers, this isn't a happy ending. It's a reckoning. If my story moved you, please share your thoughts in the comments. I will read everyone. Like, share, and subscribe to keep these raw, real tales alive. Your support is my lifeline. Thank you for walking this broken road with me.